Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's our post England 1, Denmark 1 instant match reaction. If you're watching along live, please do retweet us, subscribe to the channel and also like the video. I'm Stephen Brown and with me on the stream is Jason Booker, Gareth Walker and our very own birthday boy. It is Mr. Stephen Down. Steve, we appreciate you making time to come on your birthday to talk about that in what was pretty much a turgid performance from England, an incredibly poor result. Just entering the building as well, we've also got Mr. Chris Bell as well, who's disappeared. Anyways, that was a very quick.
That's what he thinks of the game, mate.
That's what he thinks of the game. He's realised he's got to come on and defend Southgate, I think. So
yeah, 100%.
Anyways, so welcome along. Please get your comments in. What did you make of that England performance? Gaz, I'm going to come to you first, mate. Where do you start with that?
Yeah, where do you start, Brownie? It was just awful, weren't it? Really, really bad. I mean, I don't know how anyone can not criticise. There's just so much that you could criticise from that performance. We were all talking in group chat, weren't we? And it was just this criticism for this, criticism for that. And it's right. You can't dress it up anyway. I've had to write. I've never written it down before I've come on a pod before, lads. But I've written stuff down here because there were that much that you could say went wrong or wasn't right. I mean, the left-hand side, you've got Foden coming inside. I know Jay mentioned this in the group chat. Foden's coming inside, and he's always going to come inside to get more involved, especially after he's been criticised the other night. But when you've got a right-footed left-back out there as well, then he's going to come inside, and you've got absolutely nothing on the left. Don't get me started on Trent. I mean, I love Trent to bits. Really, really love Trent. You know my Liverpool leanings, and I'm a big Trent fanboy. But why is he even trying? Why is he even experimenting with Trent in midfield in a major tournament? This should have been boxed off well before a major tournament. You don't try things in a major tournament, and it just didn't working, is it? Let's be honest. It's not working. I think we all pretty much agreed on what we'd have done. I'd have put Foden to the 10. Taken Trent off, put Bellingham in the 8, and brought a proper left-hand sided winger on to give us something on that left-hand side. But then when he did take Trent off, what I also noticed was he brought the runners on that the commentators kept saying, we need runners going forward. Kane's dropping too deep. And he brought the runners on after he'd taken Trent off. Well, you want Trent on when you've got the runners on because he's the one that can ping the ball up to him and find them making a run. So it was just a mess, Brownie, an absolute mess. We for the second game in a row, I didn't think we coped with the press. We didn't look like we could cope with Serbia's press. We didn't look like we could cope with Denmark's press. Mate, we're just not good. It just was really, really, really bad, and I don't know where. And yeah, you said, didn't you, before we went live, like how Southgate maybe should have gone before this tournament, but there was just so much wrong with that. Like I said, I'll let someone else pick up the baton now because I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, and Jason Gaz has touched on it there. When we got the lineup in, it was the same team from the Serbia match. Is that what you expected Southgate to do? And it doesn't this tie into some of the fundamental systematic issues we've got with this England team at the moment? Things just do not click.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised to see exactly the same team. That was the team that pretty much everybody predicted before the first game. It got us through the first game. You'd hope that we'd potentially build in and look a little bit better today. and truthfully, like, I know we were all screaming left, right, and centre for changes and personnel changes at our time, and I was saying, look, it's a bit overboard, and simply because it doesn't change the style, it doesn't change the tactics, and bar one running behind from Watkins, it didn't change anything. The performance looked exactly the same after Kane, Gallagher, all these changes as they started happening. It looked exactly the same, just with different people trying to do exactly the same job. There's zero movement. There's absolutely zero movement. You're watching a player running across the pitch and nobody's moving. And I made a point that 70th minute when Watkins ran in behind, it was the first run that we'd made through the whole game. The only person that was trying to do it was Bellingham, and that was driving it in through them gaps. But even he didn't have a great game today. And a lot of that was to do with Denmark were better than Serbia. I will say that. I thought Denmark set up really, really well. But tactically, they were miles ahead of what we were doing. Miles ahead. They had a start point for an effective press for a start. There were a trigger. You could see it. You literally could see it happening. And I mean, at times we just looked so uncomfortable with the ball at his feet. For me, and I know he made one small mistake towards the end and he made up for it, but the only player that can come out of today's performance with any sort of credit was Gay. It was the only player that I thought played half well. And really, we shouldn't be saying Denmark were very unfortunate not to win the game. I know we hit the post in the second half, but the whole of the play after us going 1-0 up was Denmark. Everything was starting and finished with them, whether it be the pressing, defending. The whole game was controlled by them. Even the odd moments that we had they were fleeting, weren't they? So just so disjointed, mate. And you're absolutely spot on. And it for me, it's instructional, it's tactical. That there doesn't look to be any patterns of play that are worked on within that system. It's 11 players go out and play, and we hope for the best. I don't know, again, we had a bit of back and forward about this left-hand side situation, but there was times where there were big spaces over on the left-hand side, and because Trippier can't confidently take the ball down on his left foot, never mind cross the ball with his left foot, he can't take the ball in his stride running that way. He has to turn back inside. So it slows the play down. You might as well not even have that overlap. It makes it completely pointless.
No, exactly. Steve, how can you make so many players, world-class players, some of them, maybe you could argue about who's world-class, how can so many talented players look so disjointed and look incredibly off it? You talk about Bellingham, Foden, these guys that have won players of the season in their respective leagues. I mean, it takes some effort to make them not work, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. Well, first, I'd like to say thanks, England, for making my 28th year birthday on this planet something not to remember. Cheers, guys. Obviously, there was a lot of discussion within the chat, on our WhatsApp group. I know me and Jay bumped heads, obviously, a few times. Me and Chris obviously bumped heads a few times. But, it's just because we're all passionate and we want England to win, and we all see the game slightly differently. But I don't know, Brownie, the answer to your question. And we've got literally La Liga winners. We've got, the fact that we've got superstars in the Bundesliga. We've got absolutely fantastic players in the Premier League, galore. And we just can't fit them into any sort of system. I said after the first game, you look at the other nations such as Germany and Spain and Italy, who have, Italy maybe not at the moment, but Spain and Germany have had now difficult fixtures, and they're smooth. They look fluid. They're smooth. They play football with such panache, and we just look wooden and still and slow and ponderous on the ball. And for Bellingham not to have a good game, I didn't think Bellingham had a good game. I thought he was. He couldn't. There was no passing. There was no style. I agree with Jay when he said that. It's a fact of instructional work by Southgate, and it is. How can you go 1-0 up in a game and then immediately go? It's like a switch. It's like when you go into a room and you turn a light on and off. Right? We go 1-0 up, the light's on, and within 30 seconds. You click the light off and we go. And Chris will hate me for saying it. I'm fine with it. He can hate me all he wants. But we sit back, we let the opposition onto us, and they pressed us. And we didn't change the status quo with that press for the rest of the half. The second half, within 5 minutes, they're passing the ball once again. In terms of just there's no fluidity, there's no intensity, there's no passion there to pass the ball. I just don't get it. I just don't understand it. And for me, it's so infuriating, right, to have a centre forward who basically plays in the same position as what Bellingham's trying to play in. Harry, move 10 yards up the pitch, even if you can't do the press. Right, because you're 30 or whatever the age he is, and he ain't got the energy to do it. At least try and do it. Højlund at the other end did a decent job at pressing our centre backs and making it difficult for them. And that's where we got it wrong. The press was all wrong, and I agree with Jay actually. Once again that when Watkins came on, he did make a difference, but. It was still slow and ponderous, and it whilst there was runs in behind, it wasn't fantastic to watch. It was poorer than Sunday for me. On this form, we're not winning the tournament. We're not even getting past the last 16 stage,
Nowhere near.
unless we get somebody like Scotland. You know, and I just feel I feel so frustrated. And I actually think in these two games, this is the worst we've been at a tournament under Southgate.
Oh,
And
without doubt.
And Trent in midfield, Gaz, you got his spot on. He can't play midfield. He don't know how to defensively do that role. And to have overrunners come on as subs and then take Trent off makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But Trent is not a midfielder. He switched it to Gallagher. I said, yeah, I know you had a bit of a dig there, Jay, about half-time subs, because that's what I said in the WhatsApp group. But basically, I'd have dropped Bellingham back to Rice. I'd have chucked Palmer on, and I put Gordon on eventually for Foden. I know he put Bowen on. And to me, those would have been the changes. But to stick Gallagher on 7 minutes into the half, it's just...
It's stupid. You just make that change at half-time. Like, I didn't agree with half-times. I didn't agree with half-time substitutions, but if you're going to make that substitution 7 minutes into the half, you might as well make it at half-time. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just 2 points just before you move it on, Brownie. The sitting back when we go 1-0 up is just so brain dead. For me...
We do though, don't we, Jay? You're
absolutely right. It exposes Gareth, I think, personally, because we're not even set up to be a counter-attacking team. We don't have a fast, pacey striker. We have Saka, and then we have Foden, who wants to cut inside. Kyle Walker's usually more defensive now, really, in this setup. And we have no left-back. So how are we meant to even counter-attack?
Exactly.
And as for Harry Kane's gone over to Bundesliga this season and absolutely smashed it. He's obviously a fantastic goal scorer for England as well. Previously at Spurs, they always managed to get him fitting in and playing it, whether it were alongside Heung-min Son or whoever. How we can't work around him in this... He should be having 5, 6, 7 chances a game with the players that he's got around him. And he has one.
But you're asking him to do the press, Jay, and he can't do it. And I get that. I know he's never done it, but I can't. And I get what we all accept. He can't do the press. So why are we asking him to what? But what's infuriating is we've got 3 absolutely world-class players behind him, right? And he's dropping into their position. He's sitting so far back. In the last 10 minutes of that first half, he cleared it on the edge of our box.
He's always done it for Southgate, though, hasn't he? That version of Harry Kane is what we've always seen. So
I don't
know. I just want to bring Chris Bell in. Chris, obviously, you've probably had a more favourable view of Southgate than perhaps the rest of us in the group for the West Yorkshire Football Show. Where do you stand on his position and how he's set England up? And I mean, what are your thoughts on it, mate?
Where do you start? Yeah, to be fair, for me, that's the worst in-tournament performance since Iceland in 2016. So therefore, the worst in-tournament performance in Southgate's tenure. We're just fortunate that the result earlier went with us. Excuse me, and that we're not in. It's not a completely perilous position to be in come the third game against Slovenia. It's massively disappointing. And that's me done.
Bloody hell, if Chris is this flat, then we're all in trouble, aren't we?
I mean, can you imagine if that were a good side today? If we were in a group that did include another big hitter, an Italy or France or Germany or...
I will say, what I will say on that, though, is that your opponent means how decides how you step up the performance. I know it shouldn't, but if it were a bigger side, the performance...
I know what you're saying.
Should have been better.
I know what you're saying, but we're not saying that about the Germans, and we're not saying it about the Spanish, and we're not saying it about whoever else has played these mediocre teams. Germany takes Scotland apart in the opening game. Spain do the same against Croatia.
Croatia's a good side.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would probably say the version of Croatia that we've seen are probably comparable to that Denmark side.
Very similar. Yeah, I agree.
And they took them apart. You know what I mean? They took them apart. So
well, that was my point on Sunday, Jay, right? Just to cut in. So I don't mean we won't go over the same argument, but basically, my point was when I said, and I said it in the group today, let's go kill them, right? And I feel if we were on it today, we could have done what Germany's done or what Spain have done to Croatia because we're that good. I believe in our players and the talent of our players so much. It's the most talented side I've ever experienced being an England football fan. In my opinion, it's so infuriating. We have a manager that just doesn't believe in the players as much as we believe in the players, and I just feel to sit back after 1-0, and we did the same on Sunday. And I know, Chris, we disagreed on it because you sort of said you've got to go up against what you're playing in Serbia, and I agree with that. But we've seen the same again today. And I just feel if we play it to what we know we can play like, we can destroy teams in this tournament, and we're just not doing. And it's so infuriating, and it's sad. It's sad.
Gaz, I mean, when you talk about Harry Kane as an example, this is a guy, as Jay has pointed out, top scorer in the Bundesliga, a world-class striker, no doubt. Why are you in a situation where after whatever it was, 65 minutes, 70 minutes, you're subbing off the England all-time goal-scoring record holder, and it just doesn't look like working? I mean, how do you get to that situation? I mean, what happens from here, you think, with Harry Kane going forward?
See, this is what I've been trying to work out just while you lads were talking there. Like, we're saying it's the worst performance from a Southgate team in a tournament, and I don't think anybody can argue with that. But why is it the worst performance? What has happened to us since last tournament, 2022 or 2021, or what? Why are we so much worse? Why are we playing so much worse now than we were then? And I can only put it down to that we've got the big decisions wrong in the way the team's set up, in the way the team's instructed to play. The big decision for me before the tournament, and I think we talked about it a lot, was where do you play Bellingham? Do you play him deeper, where he's played for England before, or do you play him as a 10, where he's been playing for Real Madrid? Because he'd not really played as a 10 until Ancelotti got hold of him at Real Madrid. And we seem to have gone with that and played him as a 10. And for me, he'd have been better in the 8 and Foden at the 10. The left-hand side, all right, you can't do a lot about the left-hand side. There is a shortage of left-backs. Chilwell's been awful this season, and Shaw's obviously injured. After that, he's struggling for a left-back. Foden's always going to come inside, and I'd have had him as a 10 and probably stuck a proper left winger out there, whether it be Gordon or probably not Eze, because Eze is right-footed and he's going to come inside as well. So Gordon's your left footer, get him out there on the left-hand side. When it comes to Harry Kane, like you say, I don't. Jay said it there. He's always dropped deep. He's never really been someone who'll run in behind. He had Son doing that at Spurs. At Bayern, he's not been doing it. So why it's a problem now and it's not been before? I honestly don't know. But if you're going to have runners in behind, you need somebody like a Saka or he was the only one doing it, to be fair. Obviously, but Watkins comes on and does it. But it's tempting to say we need a second striker up there with him, but we've not had that before when in tournaments. We've always played Kane up there on his own. So I honestly don't know why it's a problem now and it's not been before. I honestly don't know, but I just feel that we've got the decisions wrong in team selection. I just feel like we're a bit of a mess. Like I say, I touched on the Trent thing at the start. Like, why is even experiment with him with that in a tournament in the first place? Baffles me. This should have been nailed down ages ago, where you were playing him. And if you can't play in midfield and you don't trust him at right back, then he's on the bench and he comes on later in a game when you do bring a runner on. When you bring a runner on and they can hit those runners. So, in answer to your question, Brownie, I honestly don't know. I don't know where you go for me. You can't not play Kane because he's your captain. They were saying on the commentary, weren't they? You've nailed your colours to the mast. He's your captain. He's your mate. He's your country's top scorer. He's going to play. But how you get the best out of him, I don't know. We were getting the best out of him previously, so I don't know why we're not now.
I mean, Kane
3-5-2, I think.
Kane dropping deep isn't anything new. Like we were talking about Kane dropping deep under Hodgson in 2016. This isn't anything new.
Exactly.
In 2016, he was 26.
None of us can sit here and act surprised. I mean, he made his debut in 2015, I think it was March 2015, and with like every tournament since, every England game since. At some point throughout the game, you're sure as hell to say, why is Kane dropping so deep? It's just what happens.
I do feel that this defence is very brittle. And I know like that it shouldn't necessarily inflict on what we do going the other way, but it does.
Yeah,
Because
it
the
does.
confidence that the team have behind them isn't there. Not to mention the fact that we then set the team up with Declan Rice as basically the only screen for the back line. Because Trent is just, as a defensive midfielder, he's so unaware of where he needs to position himself. I mean, Brownie made the comment about his body positioning. It's just basics that you pick up through years and years and years of playing in a particular position, and he's just not got it. I mean, I know Conor Gallagher's not going to be everybody's kind of an answer, and he's not mine. I'd do exactly what has been mentioned a couple of times and start Bellingham and Rice alongside each other, and then play somebody else at 10, probably Foden. But if you're going to have that kind of profile, play Gallagher there over Trent. It's a pure experiment, like Gazza said earlier, that he needs to now abandon to get the balance right. It just doesn't feel right.
No.
What about
Annie, already? Like by bringing Gallagher on as the first change in 4 games, I think he's saying Bellingham's my 10. Well, maybe he shouldn't be. Maybe he should be your 8, mate. And maybe Foden should be your 10.
But doesn't it smack of the old Lampard-Gerrard thing where it's like, I don't know, players played on reputation, or it's like, we just got to fit them in and it doesn't kind of matter if it works in a system. It's just, we've got to have these players playing in this certain position and that's it. Just before we move on, just want to go to some of the comments as well. Guys, please keep getting your comments in, like the video as well. Namgor, the 2 games reveal a lack of English players in the Premiership.
I don't know what he means by that. Yeah, I saw that comment coming out. I don't know what he means by that, because other than Kane and Bellingham, the whole team's in England.
I think I'm going to assume anyway what you're going to mean here is in terms of a lack of top-class players.
He's talking about English players playing in the Premier League.
You look at the centre halves, especially, and well, that's a problem area, obviously, because we again, we said this before the tournament that we were clamouring for Harry Maguire, who's been very in and out this season. We have a lack of depth, I think, of actually top class players in the Premier League, and I think this shows that the defence shows it.
Don't every nation have this issue though? Like, but in the preview we were talking about Spain having Laporte and Le Monde were both French at centre back. Italy's defensive problems have been wildly known. I think it's a defensive issue because the game has changed. Like, players don't want to be centre backs; they don't want to defend. Like, good defending. Look at Romania the other day. It was Romania with the Tottenham centre back.
Yeah, Dragon.
They just look like they love defending. Like, give me a ball, I want to head the bloody thing, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to smash into these tackles. Look at John Stones, and I rate John Stones. He's not that kind of defender. They don't.
Neither's Gay, really.
No, they're not. He's right. You're right. He's not. But that's the difference. I think it's a defensive issue that more than an English thing, personally.
Yeah. PPN Gator, I really want to know what they do in training. They do not look fit, crisp, in passing or in sync. What have they been doing in the practice sessions? And I've got to say, for me, Bellingham looked absolutely shattered. He looked just tired today, and it really sloppy at times.
The thing
There's no pattern, is there? There's no pattern in our play. Like, I understand that comment, to be honest. What are we doing in training? Because we don't look like. I think Jay put in the group chat. Like, there's no like passing patterns. There's no how we're gonna get in behind. How we're gonna break teams down. We look clueless on the ball, and that's really, really worrying.
I know international football
combinations.
International football is different. You get less time with the coach and whatnot. I totally get it. But Brownie, we spent 3 years watching recycled passages of play repeat themselves time after time after time, and you could see that it was drilled into them to the 8th degree, wasn't it? And that's how it was. Like, you could.
Jay's
out. I'll just pick up his point. So basically, right, the thing I'd argue is that Southgate's been here nearly 10 years now. You should be able to stamp a style of play on even an international side, whether you work with the players infrequently or not. I think you should have a defined style of play, and we don't. The second thing is, we talked about Bellingham in the number 10, and that's where he's playing because of the manager. Yeah, but the manager's not Southgate. He's about 10 million times better than what Southgate is as a manager. So, for me, he understands probably Bellingham a little bit better. The other thing is, obviously, I think Real Madrid is you know, you look at Real Madrid as a side, the way that they attack and play football is probably better than what we play football. If you put Real Madrid up against us, Real Madrid probably beat us, you know, in a training game. So for me, like, we've got excellent players. We're just not using them in the right system. And I don't know how you boys feel about this. I would maybe feel or think about going to a 3-5-2, and maybe having Rice and Bellingham as your two in midfield, and that's it. And you have Foden in the slightly further forward in front of them. Your two wingers are going to be Walker and Trent, because I think Trippier doesn't really offer anything, and I think at least Trent he's a bit faster and a bit more dynamic, particularly at probably wing back. And then you have two up front with Harry Kane, and you have Watkins, and at least Watkins can get him behind, and they're having a bit more to the defence is having a bit more to think about. The three at the back, I would have Gay as sort of the sweeper because he's the fastest. You got Stones on the left, and then it's whoever you want on the right. That's what I would do next game, to be honest.
You put Walker into a back three.
I think Ian makes a good point. Is that Ian's pointing out Rice was awful tonight. He never seems to get criticised. Now, this is my annoyance with pundits, actually, is the fact that it's staring us there in the face. Rice was absolutely awful, but we won't hear much criticism. Obviously, you don't expect him to get dropped or anything like that, but I just feel there's certain favourites, certain players have halos over the head, and they seem to get away with it a little bit more than others, shall we say. Where do we go from here then, Chris? Obviously, we're still top of the group. We've got one more game to go. You would expect us still to qualify, but why is it? How have we got to a stage with Southgate now where we probably look worse than at the start of his reign? You know, we all remember 2018. It was quite a limited team in terms of talent compared to this. Why is it kind of looking so ropey now?
Good question. And one that I don't really have an answer for. You expect progress, don't you? You don't expect regression over time, and even just from 22 in the group stages. Although, again, it's a bit of an England thing. We always have this habit of, and I think mentioned it in commentary, where you win the first game and then we end up drawing the second. I think moving forward, it's just a case of prepping for the Slovenia game. He's not going to change the formation. He's not going to change the system. There'll probably be personnel changes. I would be surprised to see Trent starting there against Slovenia. But then at the same time, Slovenia are one of the weaker sides, so you'd hope he'll go for that. Would be where I bring in Palmer and put Bellingham to an 8 personally. But yeah, as Ian's just said, I'll bring it up. He has to freshen it up, doesn't he? Something has to change. He has to show that the players that haven't performed in these first two games aren't undroppable in certain positions. And get the result. As I said at the start, like, we've been fortunate that the result today in the other game went for us. I think technically a draw, depending on what Denmark were to do against Serbia, a draw might even see us finish finish top of the group. But I would expect us to win anyway, even if it's another scrappy 1-0. It's one of those. Let's, at the end of the day, get through this tournament. Whatever happens, happens. Southgate goes, see who comes in to take us into the World Cup in 26.
Are you disappointed, Chris? Are you disappointed? Because I know we
aren't we all?
I know, but I know we all joke and we have a laugh and whatever about sort of, and we say that you're sort of the Southgate, you know, sort of you stick up for him and probably are the most positive in the group about England. But I even sense a bit of frustration from you, particularly after that performance. If to be fair, would I be right in that?
Yeah. It's to be fair, it's weird though, because I think I said this in the group. I think actually on my score prediction, I think I went 1-0. One of my other group chats was like, I could see this being either a scrappy 1-0 win or we're going to labour to a 1-1 draw. And lo and behold, that's what we've done. I think Lewis actually predicted the 1-1 draw when we were going through the scores. And you know what? I'd have taken a 1-1 draw if the performance had been more where it needed to be, and it just wasn't. No. So I say it's just dust ourselves down. Hopefully, you'll bring in a couple of players and freshen things up a little bit. And with what he can, hopefully get some minutes into Luke Shaw's legs, just to try and help that left-sided problem, and then go from there.
They're
No idea
nothing
who
of
played
of the Denmark team that we've seen before. They're nothing
No.
like. I
They're-
mean, they are
they're
not a
agey,
good
aren't
side.
they?
Yeah, I mean, they've got Vestergaard at centre back, and we just gave him day off.
Yeah.
That's how it
Yeah.
felt today. I mean, yeah, really.
Problem is,
horrible.
I mean, as a group of strikers now for England, we don't really have a physical, apart from well, Tony's probably the most physical, elbows out, cause problems sort of thing, striker that we have. But again, because Kane is England captain and to be fair to him, he's done well in England shirt previously, he's not going to get dropped for bringing in somebody that's, gonna either run in behind or even just something that stays upfield and then can bring others into play better than Kane does, because Kane holding the ball up isn't his strength.
But what, Chris, why are we playing around that strategy?
I banged on about a 3-5-2 before on previous pods, but I think you're all right. He's not going to make drastic changes now. He's set up how he's going to set up.
Hell, I'd like to see him go 4-4-2 myself. Like at this rate,
the changes that he'll make, I think, will be to personnel. But the overriding feeling for me is that we're getting less out of these group of players now than we have done previously, and that's a real worry. We're regressing. And that's the problem. And maybe Chris nailed it there and just said we move on from Southgate after the tournament. It's just a shame that it's going to feel like it's going to end this way.
Yeah. Well, I look at a Nagelsmann at Germany now. This is a progressive coach. This is a guy who's very astute tactically. He's another level from Southgate, let's be completely honest. And look at how he makes that front three for Germany work. Wirtz, Havertz and Musiala, makes them work. Why aren't we doing the same with Foden, Kane, Bellingham? How?
Because he don't know how to do it, Brownie.
He doesn't know. You're absolutely right.
He doesn't know how to do it. He's not a progressive coach. No. We have to accept in his career, he's done something at Middlesbrough, and that's about it. He was an all right defender as a player, but he played in the 90s where the game has massively moved on since then. In its production, in its weights played, in the speed, in the technology, in everything like that. Southgate's done well for us over the last 3 years. He got us to a point where we've been in a final, we've been in a semi-final, we've nearly beaten France in a quarter-final. But you need to, with each group of players, with how good they are, you need to be getting over the final, like hurdle, and he's not going to do it. It goes back to, you can't come to your fourth tournament and be putting in your worst performance after having the previous 3 tournaments of what you've had. And I think he's just, I don't know. It's just very depressing, innit? It's just like to see all that talent just being wasted like it is. It's just mad, I feel.
Well, it's also, I mean, where's Palmer tonight? I mean, this guy, he's been had an unbelievable season. And Bowen, I like Bowen, good player and all, but why is Bowen getting on ahead of Palmer? I mean, why? Who's thinking that is the right choice to make?
Why is Gallagher getting on ahead of Palmer?
Well, yeah, I mean that's
when you have to go.
Let's talk about Gallagher. He came on, he committed 2 fouls, he got a yellow card. I mean, I don't know what his obsession with Gallagher is either.
It's because he's a centre mid, isn't it? He's the reason he's obsessed with Gallagher and bringing Gallagher on is because he goes in as in that midfield 8. It means that he doesn't have to shift Bellingham. That's it.
When you look at him,
I mean, don't worry, I prefer to see Wharton.
I think that's a big problem. He's decided he wants Bellingham as his 10. We've got Foden who can play as a 10. We've got Palmer who can play as a 10. We don't need Bellingham to play that 10. We're better off using him somewhere else. I really do think so. We might see the best out of the other attacking players.
We miss the Phillips profile.
We do.
That's what he's trying to do with Trent, but Trent ain't got the midfield awareness and the defensive positioning. He ain't got it. That's what we miss in a Southgate system. I'm not saying Phillips is the answer, but in the way that the best version of the Southgate system that we've seen is when Phillips did that lineback role where he just sits in there and mops everything up.
Do you know the nearest we've got to that at the moment, Jay? It's Wharton.
Yeah,
it is Wharton. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but he's Wharton's never. He's not going to play Wharton though, is he? He's not. I mean, I'm surprised he's not used Mainu more. To be fair, in these two games so far.
Yeah,
I'm a bit surprised at that.
Yeah, I don't get it. I think it's clearly proving one tournament too far now for Southgate. I'm trying to see if he's actually come out and done any interviews or if I can actually.
Yeah.
Why don't we just sack him now?
He's doing his
Just-
BBC one.
Mid-tournament sack.
Yeah, why don't we just sack him now and then get somebody else in?
You're not the
You're
first
the
person to
president.
say that.
I'm just to kind of sorry, because most of you won't have seen this. So I've just got Twitter up on the next page, and after I just said that about Phillips, trending in United Kingdom is Calvin Phillips. And you
No
press on it 6 minutes ago, Southgate's interview. Southgate has openly said we don't have another player like Calvin Phillips.
I've just seen it.
That's crazy, isn't it? And the comment is Wharton is literally there and way better. Like whether that's the case or not is up for debate. There's time to be said on that. But literally, like, how scary is that?
You can't say that though. Phillips is a guy that's barely played in 2 years, has had a horrible loan move at West Ham.
That profile, though. He don't mean Calvin himself, does he?
But it's just embarrassing to even bring his name.
It's
into
simply
it.
not getting the best out of that midfield, is it? That's the problem. I think we've regressed because he's not getting the best out of that midfield, and he shouldn't have been trying things now. He should have been nearly. I know he had Henderson in there after Phillips, didn't he? And even that, and I know we don't like Henderson, but that looked better than this looks.
The only thing, Gaz, the only great saving grace, is that we've actually won a game and we've drawn a game, so it's still in our hands. So he's tried it. So he's tried it now for 2 games. Even a blind man in me can see it's not working. Surely the England manager can see it's not working after 2 games. The saving grace is we've got 4 points. And as rightly Chris does say, the other games have kind of gone in our favour. And probably, hopefully, if we win the next game, but even like you say, Chris, we probably could get through with a sneaky draw in the next one. But my God, if we draw to Slovenia, jeez.
Jay can't wait for Benjamin Sesko to put us to the sword.
Patrick, it's coming. I want him to win the group.
We're missing Grealish, I think, in this tournament.
I agree.
I'm Ben White.
I'm Ben White. Don't give me started. I'm Ben White.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm just trying to see what else he's saying. I've just got the Phillips quote as well, which he says they're trying to do different things. They're trying to replace that, but I mean, he just looks tactically pretty shot. 5 days' time.
But this should have been done before the tournament, shouldn't it? Phillips hasn't played for England for. And when was the last time Phillips played for England? I mean, come on, Gareth.
Guys, if ever you needed a more like kind of alarming statement to show that Southgate's out of its depth, it is this. And I love Calvin Phillips, and he was fantastic for England. But with all the potential and ability that we've got, if you cannot sort this problem out by not bringing back in Calvin Phillips into this side, you got a problem. You got a real problem.
Calvin Phillips, by the way. A Calvin Phillips that's been injured for 2 years, that's hardly played for Man City, and then had a disastrous time at West Ham on loan. Right, cheers, Gareth.
We haven't had Phillips for ages. He obviously decided, and we've all know that Henderson's not the man. Although Henderson, it looked better when he was in there. But why are we suddenly deciding now that we miss Calvin Phillips in a Euros?
Twitter's having a meltdown. It's making me hilarious.
Come on, Gareth.
He's letting Gareth down, isn't he, Gaz?
I'm going to bring these onto the screen in a second. I've found some... Where is it? There we go. So that's some of the quotes from Southgate when he was speaking to BBC afterwards. Clearly not what we would hope for. We're not using the ball well enough, and we have to accept that if you do that, you will suffer at times as we have tonight. We know there's another level to find. What is that? 2 seconds. On whether he tells the team to drop back after scoring. Now, this is going to be a great topic for debate amongst us because it was at the time, wasn't it, in terms of the whole dropping back thing. He says, no. I think we've played teams that are quite fluid in back threes, and it's not easy to get pressure on them. But we've got to do that better than we have in these last 2 matches. Not keeping the ball has been another problem. And then in terms of why he took off Alexander-Arnold, I wanted Connor on. We needed energy. We needed to press better. Connor does that very well.
Right. I'm just going to jump in and say that with the pressing. Right. So, okay, Gareth. It's difficult to press a back 3. That makes sense. Let me tell you what it is. It's difficult to press a back 3 if you've only got one man up front. That's why it's difficult. Change to a 3-5-2, mirror the opponents, put 2 players among that back 3, and you solved your problem. It's not difficult. It's difficult when you make it difficult. Right? It makes no sense.
I just want to say, Mr. Downs has had his birthday food arrived, so you
Yeah.
enjoy it, my friend. Thank you for coming
what's
on.
on the menu, Downsley, before you go?
I'm having it's called well, Jay might know the establishment. Sorry, it's called Noshin. It's
Pardon?
Pentaf. No, it's called. It's
in.
You didn't tell us Becca was
Nosh
round.
So right, Chris. So I'm having a pentathlon pizza, which is like a chicken and meat feast pizza with peppers and pineapples on. Then I've got some onion rings and a chicken pakora.
Good
so
God,
anyway,
that's the most disgraceful thing I've seen today, and I've watched that England game. Pineapple on pizza. Oh dear.
right, we'll leave that there.
Remove
Pineapple
it.
on
Happy
pizza.
birthday,
Good.
Downsy.
All right, see you later,
Enjoy.
boys.
Happy birthday, mate. Happy
Take care,
birthday.
happy birthday.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye. There we go. Mr. Downs is gone.
Pineapple on pizza. What is he thinking?
I know. What do we think Southgate will do in the next match? Not what we do, but what do you think he will do? Do you think Trent is going to be in, out? What happens with Kane? Does he change anything on the left side? Jason, what are you expecting?
He makes one change and he starts Conor Gallagher. That's
Gav,
what he'll do.
would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100% agree. That's what he'll do. The only thing he might do on top of that is because Bellingham looked tired, he might rest him. But I'm with Jay. I think that's the only thing he'll do. I think he's nailed his colours to the mast. That's what his change is going to be. Gallagher in for Trent.
He'd have done that if we'd have won. He'd have rested
Yeah.
Bellingham as well if we'd have won. I think because we need something, he'll start him.
Chris, is there a chance that actually this kind of start England have had, we can turn it around and actually rally and still have
Yeah.
a decent tournament, do you think?
Yeah, there's always as long as you're in the tournament, you've got a chance to progress and improve in it. And let's be honest, we can't get any bloody worse. To be honest, I mean, look, well, I think when we were on Monday, we talked a little about growing into tournaments, and we well and truly have to do that from this stage onwards, don't we? As I say, but that's the thing. As long as you're in it, you've got a chance to improve in your next game. And ultimately, as I say, Slovenia is, again, with the best of respect to them, is a favourable opponent to have. Is this final group game? As much as they'll also be needing points for their own qualifications and knockouts.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see the fallout over the next 5 days, though, isn't it? There's going to be a lot of conversation going on, and it's the pressure's going to be there, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, look, as I say, it's one of those. I think whatever happens, this is going to be it for Southgate, and I almost want to start who's the next England manager conversation, but we'll do that another night.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay, final word from you, mate.
To kind of echo what somebody said to me, said in here earlier, there is absolutely no chance of us winning this tournament, playing anything like that. We come up against a side that's hoping to win this tournament, and we just get blown away right now. I do agree with Chris to a certain point that we will play better against better sides because you raise your games. But what we've seen over the last three fixtures, include the Iceland friendly in this as well, is a real lack of idea, creative passing patterns, and pace, snappiness. Quickly moving the ball around. It should be something that we can do. So yeah, I don't hold out much hope, unfortunately. Well, yeah, on to Slovenia, I guess.
On to Slovenia. Gareth, final thoughts from you, mate?
Yeah, just absolutely flabbergasted that we're struggling to get the best out of our players now, and he's experimenting with things now in a tournament when it should have been nailed down before. Flabbergasted at that, flabbergasted at how much we've regressed, and how we're suddenly saying, however long it is since Calvin Phillips played, that we miss him and we've not replaced him. I mean, why are we thinking that now? I'm just really, really flat, but it's England, isn't it? It's what we do.
It's what we do. Chris, final thoughts from you, mate?
Yeah, just as I said, really, just we go on, don't we? It's all we can do. Go on to Slovenia, hopefully get the result, and then go through to knockouts. Just spotted the last comment I'm asking about the knockouts. I think if we to top the group, we get whoever's second in groups A or B, which I think would be probably like Switzerland or potentially Italy or Spain, depending on how that game goes, actually. So, whilst we would avoid the Germans if we were to win the group, it might not necessarily be too much easier if it ends up being one of them.
No, indeed. Well, I want to thank everybody who's commented on the stream tonight. And if you're watching again later, please do like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel as well. We're going to have plenty more England match reviews, depending how long they stay in the tournament, of course. So we'll be back. Myself and Jason, we're going to be on stream. Yeah, we're going to be on stream very shortly for some Leeds United content as well. So please do check that out. I've been Stephen Brown. Alongside me has been Jason Booker, Gareth Walker, and Chris Bell as well. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.